Welcome, Dia Matthews. This is episode number 11 of the Path to Follow podcast. It's a pleasure to get you in the studio.
Oh, thank you. Pleasure to be here. Pleasure to get here.
How is your year going so far in the lower school?
It is very unusual, not the way that it normally is, but the boys have been unbelievably good at adapting to wearing a mask and trying not to grab each other.
It's amazing. It's amazing to me how they keep those masks on there. I mean, they're doing a pretty good job from what I can tell, just watching them.
They are. They actually get mad at each other if you take it off. They'll tell you, put your mask on.
Oh, they're
but
protective over their masks.
Mm-hmm. Right? I'm not sure they know why, but they know that that's the rule. So
yeah.
we're pretty good at keeping them on right now, most of the time.
Great. Well, that's good. And they've been pretty active outside running around lately. So that hasn't changed.
No, that definitely has not changed. We definitely know that we have to get outside and run around. If you have a mask on, then you have a mask on, but it's okay.
Yeah.
You have to just change it when you come back in because they get a little soggy.
Yeah.
We have different problems in the lower school.
Yeah. I'm interested in talking to you about that because, it's been weird I haven't seen you at lunch or really, I'm used to seeing you a lot more than I have this year. And the same goes for all of the teachers. We're in this disconnected world where you teach your classes, you go to your office for a little bit, and then there's not much else to do really with the day.
Yeah. We pretty much are in our room nonstop, maybe go out grab a bite to eat. A proctor comes in for about a half an hour and you run to the bathroom, you make copies, you get a cup of coffee and you run back. And then you hand out lunch and you start again. They go outside for a minute and do it all over again. You really don't, they're with us. So they've been really, really good about staying put and staying at a space with plexiglass around them. They're learning to draw on the plexiglass right now and various other things that we're not really supposed to do, but it's there. So
that's great.
Yep. So we're finding new ways to accommodate and figure things out, learn with what we have around us.
Yep.
But you can't play a game with somebody, really. You can't share something. So
yeah, I guess you have to innovate down there in the lower school and, figure out what works during this time for little kids.
Right. And some things you find out real fast don't work.
Yeah.
So you have to adapt on the fly and be ready to move, change it to something else. And that's another piece is a lot of the movement. Just we're used to moving around. They're not used to sitting in chairs. So getting them to move around the classroom or be somewhere else. So trying to keep all of that in our day.
So how do you make that? So maybe for people in the upper school and the middle school and just in the community that don't know, what is the setup in the lower school right now? Is it every day everyone's coming in, or is it A/B schedule like the upper school? What is the COVID arrangement?
Right now we are there every day. We are there from 8 till 3, and we have usually tables of 3. Sometimes some classes have desks. Our class is one of the larger ones with 15 boys, but we can be spread out by 6 feet within the room that we have, so they can fit. They have the plexiglass between them, so there's 3 kids at a table. We have X's all around the room so that when you line up, you're 6 feet apart from somebody, and you want to make sure that at this point we've put words on the X's, so they have to read a word or they have to do a math problem, so something to keep them active. It's hard to be first in line when you're not sure where the line starts, so that's been a problem that we haven't had to deal with a lot. They are eating in the room as well, which is also a little bit harder, but they're being really good about staying at their spaces and trying to clean up. We also learned how to compost this year. That's a new skill that who knew you would have to know.
Yeah.
And they're really good about washing the tables down, washing their hands. So they're trying. They really are.
Yeah, they're doing pretty well with it, it sounds like.
At age 5, I didn't have to wash my table. I didn't have to constantly be washing my hands and staying 6 feet apart. So, they're learning. They are. They're doing well.
So do you think this is, what type of effect do you think this is going to have on younger kids? I know I was asking myself that question with my little sister, and every time she came in the house in March, my dad was like, wash your hands, and
Yep.
I feel like that makes a lasting impact on younger kids. Do you think?
Yeah. At first, they were a little bit afraid of germs, in a sense. They don't quite understand. We try and talk about it and explain it. They don't quite understand what this is. They know they have to stay away. They know they have to keep clean. So they're doing it just now. It's repetition. They will even say to us, we need a squirt, which is a squirt of hand sanitizer. So, they come in the door, they squirt. They come for lunchtime, they get a squirt. It's sort of constant. But they don't want to dig in the dirt. They don't want to, hang out in the grass or that kind of thing. So we were outside trying to sit down, and it was sort of, no, I can't touch this. So I'm wondering how it will affect them. Whether they'll be able to sort of get past all of that. I'm hoping that they will figure it out pretty quickly. Once all the regulations and all the rules are down and they don't have to do that, I think they'll go back to the way they were. But I think it depends on the age, because I coach over at Bryn Mawr too, and those girls, they're a little more, no, I wouldn't say afraid, but weary of what's going on. So all of a sudden they say, that's it, we can't be that close. And it sort of surprised me that they were so serious about it.
What age do you coach?
High school.
High school girls.
So I go from the little ones over there to I was coaching JV field hockey, and I was amazed at how well they followed the rules. They wanted to play. They didn't want to be stuck home.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Yeah, it was hard.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I don't know if it's going to take some time, I think, for me to snap back to normal. Even, hopefully this ends soon and we're back to regular life. But still, like, I watch a movie and people are getting too close, and it freaks me out a little bit. Or you see people high five each other, and it's like, whoa, what are you doing?
I agree. Or when you go into space and there's more people than you're used to, I have to kind of step back for a minute and figure out where I'm going to put myself, because I'm not used to all the people.
Right. But it's a lot better than it was in March, when going to the supermarket was, it was like you're going to war, really.
Yeah.
For a little bit. We didn't know what it was back then.
Right.
Really. To some degree, we still don't know, but we have a better kind of way of, dealing with it, and we understand it a little bit better.
Right. We're figuring it out slowly. So we told our parents, we said, bear with us. Things are not going to go as quickly as they have before, and we're going to learn new things, and we're going to try new things. So just bear with us, because sometimes it's going to work and sometimes, nope, plan B. Yeah. We just go for it.
And that's okay too. Trial and error.
Yep. A lot of that. It's
all adaptability at this point.
Yeah, it is. And we're adapting.
Yeah. Totally. So Dia, what do you teach in the lower school? What are your...
This year?
Yeah. What are you teaching this year?
This year I'm teaching kindergarten.
Last
year I taught art and PE to the youngest group, the 4-year-olds, and the kindergarten. Before that I taught 4th grade. Before that I taught pre-first, and I've taught 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. I've taught everything but 5th grade. Put it that way, now that I think about it.
5th grade is the top age in the lower school.
Yeah.
Is there a reason why you haven't taught them, or?
No. Just haven't been asked. It's okay. Don't need to be asked.
But you switch around pretty much every year.
The past couple of years I have. I pretty much was in pre-first for about 20 years, and then did some 3rd grade and did some 1st grade, and then moved around recently. So that's been fun. It makes you see kids as they get older and not get stuck in a rut, and make yourself learn again different ways, because what works with the pre-firster does not work with a 4th grader, and vice versa. Well, sometimes it does. But for the most part, it keeps you engaged, keeps you active, and see what's important for these guys and what they're getting and what they're not getting, and how can you tweak it.
Right.
So
something
it's
new.
kept me busy.
Yeah, that's great. Do you have a favorite age to teach?
Yes. Let me see. I actually am loving kindergarten right now. They're just so, I love teaching reading. I actually love to teach reading, and I love teaching art. And those things seem to really come together in kindergarten because they start to figure things out. But having said that, 3rd and 4th grade was really fun to study a topic and have a conversation and have them write a really thoughtful paragraph, because in kindergarten you might get a picture, but not a thoughtful paragraph or a sentence. So you can, it depends on what the subject is, I think. But I'm going to say I really like the little ones. They're funny too. They're just, everything's new. You know, we're watching something today about naming the new panda at the Smithsonian Zoo, and you couldn't see more excited kids about naming a panda, you know, and that's kind of cool to see. So
yeah, that is every day. It's just
something new.
The excitement.
A lot of excitement. You're welcome to come down anytime.
I would love to. I did visit your class my first year here, and you had a kid in your class who was really into drawing and cartooning. So I talked a little bit about my interest in political cartoons, which was fun.
They loved it. Yeah. And they would love to see you again. They're now in the middle school, so you have to go find them.
Yeah.
But they would love to do that.
I would love to come
That
down.
was an artistic class.
Yeah, it was. They were very, I mean, that was a great
That was fun.
15, 20 minutes or whatever it was, because they were so excited. It was fun.
Oh, I know. I love it. Thank you for coming down. That was fun.
Yeah. I'm happy to do it anytime.
You be careful.
Yeah.
I might ask you to come down.
Yeah. I might be the new proctor.
Yep.
Great. So let's talk about art and how you teach art in the lower school.
A lot of hands-on, just get into it as best you can. There's different philosophies on the way you can teach it. And with the younger ones, sometimes it's just dig into it, get the watercolors out and just see what happens. Oh, look what happens when you mix these colors together. Look what happens when I add more water. Look what happens when I do this. And we make a lot of messes. I mean, truly, it's a mess. But that's okay. To me, if my kids always came home and they were kind of covered in paint and glue and feathers and glitter, whatever else, I realized they had a really good day. They were creating something, thinking about something. And so we bring out all that stuff. It's a disaster sometimes, but they have fun with it, and they try different things, and they see how it feels. And some kids don't want to touch anything. Like, nope, can't touch that.
That was me.
That was you.
I didn't even I don't think I finger painted. I was anti-finger paint.
We have some of that. So then we brought out pudding, and most of the kids would pudding paint, not during COVID, but other times you throw chocolate pudding down and you'd be amazed what comes out. You have all sorts of designs at that point.
I remember one of my teachers growing up, I don't know how I remember this, but did shaving cream and, do the math problems in the shaving cream.
Yep.
That was fun.
Yep. We do that pretty regularly right now. And the room smells much better.
Right. And it's somewhat easy to clean up, right?
That's easy. Yeah, and it cleans the table, so it's great.
Yeah. Perfect.
That works. We get sand out, those things. But then we also teach them specific parts of drawing. So they love to see if you make a circle into something else. And all of a sudden they figure these, shapes and lines start to create something. And then all of a sudden they magically go, oh, wait a minute, I can add this and this. And so then you come up with the cartoons like you have. All of a sudden they have big eyes on a person or something else. Or they were making Angry Birds the other day. They were very happy about it. Oh, I just changed the line. Now he's angry. I was like, yup. So that's how I go about it.
Yeah,
just to
that's fun.
Have them create. And if you make a mistake, you turn it into something else. So it's not a big deal. Yeah. But is that how you learned?
Do you guys, I remember my 4th grade art teacher was my younger sister, who's now in 5th grade. She had Miss Walsh last year too. So it was fun going back to see Miss Walsh, and she was great because she brought in like Picasso and some other artists to show us,
right.
Because I find with Picasso so interesting is like he wanted to get back to his creations as a child. That was like his progression, because you see his work when he was 14 or 15 and it's just beautiful. It's amazing. Everything's perfect. And all the dimensions are accurate. Everything looks great. And then when he gets to be in his older years, it looks like a child's work, really. And
their work is so true. I think that's what I like. They pick the colors they like, they match them up. The lines are pretty solid in a sense, but they just have a good representation of what they see. And I've been really lucky too, like you're saying, bringing artists in, Picasso or Klimt, or I was trying to think of another one. We were doing Michelangelo, so we got on the floor and colored. I taped the pictures, the paper to the underneath of the table so that they could. I didn't do paint because I knew that would be a disaster, but we had crayons and we were drawing, our own artwork, like the Sistine Chapel under there. But just to get the idea of what's it like to put artwork up on a wall or a mural. And having visited a fair amount of places and bringing different artists back in, it's great to look at other cultures. And with the little kids, they're just amazed. Mm-hmm. So try and bring a lot of that in too, to appreciate lots of different art, not just one type.
Sistine Chapel is one of the coolest things I've ever seen, probably.
I would like to see that one. I've just seen images of it, but I would like to go in there. But, plenty of other churches, and looking up at the ceilings and thinking, I can't imagine trying to do this.
You have to get the little kids to do it on their backs, like Michelangelo, like slide under the desk.
Yeah, that's what they did.
Oh, they're underneath.
They were underneath the tables drawing.
Oh, I love that.
Got a little bit on the table, just a little bit.
Yeah, it's all right. It's okay.
But it worked. Awesome. My arm is tired. I'm like, well, think what he felt like.
Yeah. Oh, I cannot imagine. And the thing about the Sistine Chapel is everyone who's in there wants to take a picture of it. It's because you want to keep this moment forever. And those people who work there snipe you. Like you try to sneak a picture.
Yep.
Oh, they're like, dude, get out of here. I remember my friends when we were over there. They were just like booted. See you later.
Makes it even more fun.
Yeah.
Let's see what we can get away with on this one.
So that's great. I love the art in the lower school and how excited they are about it. It's fun.
I think it's a big piece. And I love when I see some of the kids that we've taught, and then you see some of the artwork in the hallway now, and you go, oh, I remember him doing this, or you've saved a piece of artwork that they had. Mm-hmm. I think that's really cool too. And a lot of good artists.
Do you see, so in your time here, have you kind of identified students right away in the lower school who are going to be all-star artists when they get to the upper school? Is that easy for you to just pinpoint?
Not always, but Jake Mathai comes to mind because I watched his artwork in the lower school was phenomenal, and then you would see it again as he kept getting older. He stayed with it for a while, and then I had someone else in mind. There were a couple more that you've watched, but then there's some boys that it disappears in middle school, and you sort of get sad. And Dave Anderson and I have talked about that. It's just hard for them. They don't want to do it anymore for whatever reason, and yet they were really gifted, talented, and I always hope that they'll come back to it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. If I'd thought ahead, I could probably come up with a fair amount of kids, but sometimes you can pick it out. Sometimes it's more a sense of color than it is the actual designing, and then all of a sudden they go into painting or they go into photography, and you realize what an eye they have. But some kids, they immediately, you see them at a young age and go, wow, I can't believe he can see that and do that. Mm-hmm. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
And then how about on the reading end? So when you're teaching reading, what does that look like in the lower school?
It's interesting because everybody learns to read. I mean, some people like it more than others, but we all can do it. Mm-hmm. And so you sort of keep that in mind. And there seems to be a contest of who can read first. And honestly, it doesn't matter who reads first. It's, can you read it? Can you make sense of it? So we have so many different levels. And I think that's what I enjoyed about pre-first is we really had, or prep one, we had so many levels. We had beginning people who just knew their letters and people who were reading a 5th grade novel. I mean, we would have that much of a range, and you have to adapt what you're doing to help them find the right books, but also to use reading appropriately, I guess is the best way to say it, because a lot of them can read anything and then look at you and go, uh-huh. You say, well, what did you read? What did you find out? Mm-hmm. Words.
Yeah.
But what do those words mean? How can that help you?
Comprehension.
Right. And so right now we're just, learning the sounds and putting them together and trying to make a sentence and that kind of thing. So kindergarten's a little bit younger than I've taught reading, so I'm enjoying it. But they're starting to catch on, so that's really fun. And when they do get it, they look at a word, that says cat. Yep. Yes, you got it.
We used to have word ring when I was. Do you guys do something like that?
We have
or
some
flashcards.
like flashcards. Play a lot of memory, a lot of go fish with the flashcards.
Mhm.
Yep, a lot of that stuff.
Got to keep it competitive.
Of course, that's the
boys.
key.
That is the key.
That is the key.
It's
A
funny.
lot of games and a lot of competition.
It's funny how that works in kindergarten, and it also works in my 11th grade class. If I get a competition going at the beginning of class, Kahoot, trivia, anything for the first 5 minutes,
Yep.
I got them for the rest of the time, really.
Yeah. Well, you like competition.
I do love competition.
So, see?
Yeah. Even with the girls, though, when I taught coordinate classes, girls are, I would say even more competitive generally in my experience.
I would agree with that.
They would go after each other in there. I'd be like,
yeah.
guys.
I have a very competitive daughter that the two boys definitely have to every once in a while be careful. She'll give it to them.
That's great. And she's the oldest, right? She's the oldest sister?
She's the oldest.
Okay.
There's a lot of competition in our house with everything. Who ties their shoe the fastest? I mean, whatever, everything. But makes it fun.
And what does she do? Brooke, right?
Brooke.
What is Brooke up to now?
Brooke is actually the assistant AD over at Bryn Mawr and the head lacrosse coach over there. So, and what else did she do? U19. She helped coach that last year. She did the Under Armour stuff this year. So she's busy. Mm-hmm. She's really busy.
Is a lot of that slowing down right now? Are they doing any lacrosse stuff over there?
We were supposed to start I was going to help her out this past week. We were going to start doing it for a week while the weather was nice, once a week. And then with everybody sort of getting a little too close and the COVID, we're sort of closed down for a little bit. But she's been coaching a lot of teams and tournaments and things like that. So pretty much the same as the boys right now.
Bryn Mawr affiliated teams, club teams?
Both.
Oh, great.
All of the above. Yeah.
A lot of coaching.
Yeah.
And you've been a coach for some time at Bryn Mawr and various other places at Hopkins, I know.
Yep.
Maybe we can talk about maybe we can start with your playing experience, your athletic experience at growing up, and then how you got into coaching. That'd be great.
Okay. I know I have to think about it. So back in the day, no. So when you were in high school, you played everything. If they asked you to play something, I went to friend school right around the corner. And if they asked us to play volleyball, we played. If basketball, lacrosse, field hockey, whatever winter soccer out in the snow, whatever, we just, okay, let's play. Mm-hmm. So you just sort of played everything. But I was lucky to be growing up right as Title IX was coming in. So I was was asked to try out for a scholarship. So back in the day, you would also didn't watch, there was no film really, or if it was, I can't even imagine what it looked like, but you would physically go to the school and try out. So I went down to University of Richmond and tried out, literally play with the team. So here you are, a senior in high school playing with the juniors and seniors on the field hockey or lacrosse team, and you're running around with them trying to compete. Not really sure what's going on, but do your best. Went down to University of Maryland and played basketball. You had a group of people in there, and went to, I think it was William and Mary too. But you just would play and see what would happen. And that's how you were recruited back then, pretty much.
I kind of like that better than the way things are now. I mean, if you were to do that now, not only you can show your stuff off, you can get a sense of what the program's like, you can get a feel for the coaches, and you could also see if you like the team and the culture. Mm-hmm. Whereas I don't think you really get that as much today with the recruiting that's going on.
I think it's a lot harder now, and it starts so young. I mean, at least I was a senior and not a sophomore in high school trying to figure out what to do. Who knows? You're going to change your mind 10 times. But I liked it. It was fun. And I felt it was good confidence-wise. Like you said, I said, I can play with these women. Yeah. So ended up at University of Richmond and played field hockey and lacrosse for 4 years. And tried to play basketball also, but 3 sports is really just too much.
Well, two sports is a lot. And you don't see 2 sports as much.
Not nowadays. I mean, you could do it back then, but now it's hard.
What was it like playing 2 sports in college?
It was really fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I enjoyed it because once you ended one season, you were kind of starting the other season. You just kept going, and it was a different skill set, so you weren't burnt out. I've seen my kids playing a fair amount of lacrosse, and it's exhausting. And I think it's the wear and tear on their bodies from playing the same sport.
Same
was
cut,
tough.
Same cuts, same
Yep.
movements.
Yep.
Yeah, you get burnt out. Your body
Yeah.
gets tired of it.
So at least I had new injuries in the spring, you know.
But isn't field hockey? Wouldn't you say field hockey is very similar to lacrosse in terms of the movements, or not really? I've never played field hockey. I have no idea.
Yeah, no, because it is more in the sense like soccer. Not to say that you're looking down the whole time. You better have your head up, but you are more focused on what's going on the ground. Whereas lacrosse, you're trying to keep your head up on a swivel the whole time. So I find it a little bit, enough of a difference. Not like basketball. To me, basketball was a huge difference between the other sports, just because of the distance and everything else, and the closer. All I know is I was able to put the ball back up in basketball. I was like, oh, missed, put it back up again.
Yep,
you know?
Yep.
Whereas lacrosse, oops, if you drop it, you better be good at picking up a ground ball. Or field hockey, it goes out of bounds and you're running back the other way. But I did find it different skill set. I didn't have to be as skilled at the time in field hockey because I was big enough, strong enough, and fast enough just to hit it and run. And that was fine. Probably should have been more skilled, but that's okay.
Was lacrosse your focus? Even though you played two sports, would you say lacrosse was your main sport?
I think so, yeah. And again, it was different. We didn't have as many games as they do now, and we had two different conferences too. We had the NCAA or the AIAW, I think it was, two different conferences, and I didn't even realize we were sort of competing. But it was nice. I mean, at Richmond, we played Maryland, we played the Ivy League schools. They would come down. We'd play Virginia, Duke, not North Carolina didn't have a team at the time. No, Duke didn't have a team either. They were just field hockey at the time. So it was interesting sort of who you played. And when you go back and look at it now, I'm like, wait, they didn't have a team?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, thinking now UNC women's didn't have a team.
Yeah, I know. And look at them now.
Yeah, powerhouse.
Yeah.
So how did field hockey help you with lacrosse?
I think one, just staying in shape and being competitive. And it was hard for me. So lacrosse was a little bit easier and I understood what was going on a little more. So field hockey I had to concentrate a lot more and had to find skills and find ways to adapt to a sport that wasn't as easy for me. Mm-hmm. And some girls, that was all they played, and they had all the skills and all the dodges and everything else. And I just sort of would barrel through. Mm-hmm. But it worked.
I've watched a decent amount of women's lacrosse from my sister and just being interested in the sport. But field hockey, I haven't invested much time in watching that sport. What does it take to be a good field hockey player?
I think it's changed over the years too. I had the pleasure of watching UNC women's team play a couple times and have watched them since. I can't help it. I'm addicted to it now. Mm-hmm. I love the speed and the athleticism. The ball is moving so fast now playing on the turf. And some of the stick work and rules have changed so that it's such a faster moving sport than it ever was. Mm-hmm. And there's times when I watch some of the things that these women have done on the field hockey field and think, I fear for their lives. I mean, the ball is flying through the air and they're hitting it or they're scooping it, sending it, drives at I don't even know how fast. And I wish I could have played that level because it looks so much more fun now than I remember. It was getting stuck in divots and grass a fair amount when I was playing. And now you have this smooth turf that they water it down and the speed is unbelievable.
Mostly AstroTurf, right?
Yep.
A different surface.
Mm-hmm. So it makes a big difference.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, they do water that. I forgot about that.
Yep. Make it go faster.
Yeah.
So I think I would like that aspect of it. But
for girls to improve their field hockey game, I know lacrosse, you go out and shoot, you do, different skill work sessions, but for girls, what are some main things that they can do on their own to improve their game?
Well, this was really cool this year, and I had not seen this before, but we brought in planks 4x4s, and put them out there because you couldn't really pass with anybody. You weren't allowed to share the ball. You weren't allowed to have a partner too close, things like that. So we put out planks so that they were actually hitting it into the board and it was rebounding back off. And then you had to receive it, do stick work back and forth so you could go over the plank, or you could be trying to dribble it around the plank, trying to get it right onto it, or just hit it off and do a different kind of dodge once you pulled it back or pull it to the side. So the girls' stick work really improved because the angle that you would hit the board as well changes the direction it's going to come back to you.
Mm-hmm.
So
sounds a lot like wall ball.
It was wall ball on a plank. I never thought of that before.
Yeah.
So, and that made it a little more interesting and challenging because like wall ball, when you're trying to hit that one brick on the wall
mm-hmm.
and that kind of thing, the girls were sort of figuring that out. They're like, oh, I don't want to hit that knot in the board or the ball dies,
yep.
that kind of stuff. So it was fun. It was different. And then we finally got to play each other. So that was even more fun.
That's great. Always innovating in these
You had
times.
to.
Yeah.
You had to.
You have to. So who first got you into really, like, who sparked your interest in playing sports and kind of influenced you in your career in field hockey and lacrosse?
Probably, well, my mom, I'm one of four, and my siblings played. So my sister and my two brothers played lacrosse for sure. My dad played football, basketball, and lacrosse at Hopkins. So he definitely influenced me. My brothers they liked sports. My sister was a dancer. I tried that. That didn't work so well. I mean, I'm sure it made me very strong and probably more coordinated than I should be, but the last thing I wanted to be was wearing a tutu. It just didn't go over well. So I think my dad sort of decided I was going to be the one that he wanted to have go outside and play because my brothers were both sailing a lot. So he would always have me out front, catching and throwing or hitting something or chasing something. And running was just really easy for me. So I felt like I could run forever. So I just, there's a ball, I'll chase it. So now I do a lot more running without chasing a ball, but it was much more fun when you were little. And so lacrosse was a lot easier that way. And my brother actually, we always had a ton of lacrosse sticks around because he was a patent maker for SDX for a little bit.
Oh, wow.
So we always they were those mustardy, I don't know if you remember, the sticks. He would make all the molds and things like that. So we get to play with them. So
that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So that was kind of fun. I just took it for granted though.
Yeah.
I thought everybody had that in their basement.
Just second nature.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say same with me. Like my dad always had lacrosse sticks lying around.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You just take them and play.
Yeah. That's life. That's life as you know it.
Yeah. That's how my kids grew up. There was always a stick somewhere in the house.
Yep.
Did
you have any influential coaches or people that kind of not forced you, but ushered you into maybe playing in college, or was it just something that you grasped at a young age and you wanted to pursue?
No, at Friends we had a lot of players we had a couple of players that played for the U.S. team, so you kind of knew that was something you could do. So we had some role models, but really it's tough to have role models back then. I really didn't know women that were playing too much or that you could do something with it beyond college. I was lucky enough to have the U.S. team and the England team come over here. I guess it was their World Cup games, I'm not sure. So a lot of the English players, actually a couple of them stayed at our house. So you would house them when they come over and play. And I think that influenced me more than anything else was, oh, look at these big girls, they're playing. Yeah. And then knowing some of the U.S. players at that time too. And one of them ended up coaching us at Friends, and she was wonderful. And she influenced a bunch of us. I think from my high school class, there was about 8 of us that went Division I. Between the boys and the girls, more than that, but at least 10 of us between the boys and the girls that all played D1 lacrosse. And that just doesn't happen, So that was fun. But she definitely was an influence.
After you graduated from Richmond, did you kind of, what was your thinking in terms of the next step? Did you know that you wanted to get into coaching? Did you know that you wanted to teach?
I knew I wanted to teach because I was an education major. So I knew that I would continue that, and I enjoyed teaching reading. I immediately started grad school at Hopkins to get my master's in reading disabilities and how to teach it better. And at the same time, I was looking for someone to play lacrosse with, but there really wasn't anybody. I mean, there was nothing. I could play summer league, so we played a lot of summer league. So I started running races and things like that instead. But in terms of school and coaching, so the woman that was captain when I was a freshman, she was a senior. She was coaching at Maryvale, so I started coaching at Maryvale for her. And it's the same. It seems to be the same now. Anybody who's free from 3:30 to 5:30, if they can coach, they want to grab you. So I ended up coaching field hockey and lacrosse at Maryvale and basketball at McDonough at that time, and then just sort of continued on for that. I was teaching at McDonough that year, so I just sort of coached wherever I could. But you just sort of fall into it sometimes,
right? Yeah.
So, and then stay with it.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like sports have always been a part of your life. So it was just, if you're around and you're free from 3 to 5,
yep,
why not come out?
Come on over. Well, that's how. So Johnny Foreman would see me running, and the next thing I know, do you want to come coach track? I'm like, I don't really know anything about track. Sure you do.
Yeah.
So
of course you do.
Next thing I know, a couple years I'm coaching with Johnny and Joe Duncan, and Linda Trapp. So that was really fun. Learned a lot about track and how to run, running efficiently. So I try and now explain to my girls how to run efficiently.
I could use some of that. I've never been a big runner, but COVID, I mean, all the gyms are kind of shut down, and Gilman's gym was my go-to. It's not operating right now, so I've been running a lot.
Yep.
Got some Brooks running shoes.
There you go.
They're
use the trail.
Treating me well.
Yep.
Well, my problem is that my knee, like banging my knees on the pavement is tough, but the running shoes have definitely helped out a little bit. I mean, I pay for it. I can't run as much as I used to, but it's also peace of mind for me now. Mm-hmm. I don't run so fast or far, but at least keep moving. Just get out.
Just keep moving.
Yeah. So what was your running career, or your interest in running? How did you get down and go down that road?
Right after college, we just started running a lot of 5Ks and 10Ks. And of course, my husband and I would compete against each other. He always wins, but I would try and compete. But we would just do a lot of races. And then actually when the kids were little, they would do some races with us. And then a friend called and said, do you want to do a triathlon? I said, well, I don't really know how to swim, but okay. So trained for that. Really like the sprint triathlons. The other one, I like the sprints, the Olympic level, take a little bit longer, and I never seem to have enough time to train. So just kind of, I don't know. I like the training. I like running around. I love riding my bike. I learned to love swimming, and that helped from Gilman because I could just go to the pool and swim.
Oh, true.
So back in the day, you had time where you could swim, and we'd have morning sessions, and there was a swim team at night and stuff too for adults. So we would go and swim, come home. And when you live on campus, life is a lot easier.
So you lived on campus here?
We lived here for 25 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that,
I love that. We've talked about it on the past couple of episodes. I don't live on campus. I live close enough. We're neighbors, obviously, but it's so convenient. I mean,
and it's great for your kids because they think that this is their front yard. Everybody's front yard has, 3 fields on it, a wall ball, tennis courts, and gym and everything else, and track. So they would ride their bikes forever, and they didn't stay inside much. I mean, it's just, they always had something to go do. Mm-hmm. You couldn't be bored.
Yep.
And they loved it in terms of, friends were over here always being dropped off, back and forth, games or whatever. I seem to remember carpooling a lot of people to practices. Once they left practice at Gilman, then they'd go to practice somewhere else, and they'd be in the car. So yeah. I don't know. We loved it. You have to have the right personality because we had a lot of people in our house. Our house was a constant. I didn't have a key.
Yeah.
I mean,
in and out. Everyone's coming and going.
And you have to be okay with that.
Yep.
And so that was fine with us.
Yeah.
So it was good.
Awesome. And so how about your other boys? What are they up to now?
So Jack is our middle son. He's actually coaching lacrosse out in Utah when it's not snowing.
Where's he coaching?
What's the name of his school? He was doing some coaching with Marcus over at University of Utah, like their club stuff. And wow, I just blanked on the name of his school.
It's all right.
Great view of the mountains there. Is all I know.
I've never been out to
I'll
Salt
remember
Lake.
in a minute. So he's teaching and coaching out there.
Yeah.
And I will remember it. I want to call it like River something, but that's not it. And he loves it out there, you know, getting the skiing in a little bit, learning how to ski again, and then coaching different level. But he was in Texas too, so he's seen he's watching the game grow.
Yeah.
So he's excited about that. And then Andy graduated from UNC and is up in New York, and then came back from New York, and then went back up to New York, and now he's back home again.
Yeah.
So we'll see. He's not really he was trying to play for what's the New York club?
NYAC?
Probably. And so that was just getting started when Nyack probably.
Yeah.
And he was going to try out for one of the clubs and, you know, keep playing, but COVID hit.
Yeah, it's messing everything up. But
yeah, it messes everything up. So
I have not been out to Salt Lake City. Have you been out there? I'm sure. Beautiful.
It is. It's really pretty. My daughter-in-law actually teaches up in Park City, so you kind of, and it's 30 minutes or something from the time you land at the airport up to Park City, up to the mountains, and it is beautiful. It really is. So a lot of hiking and a lot of. I wish I knew how to ski, but I don't
know either.
So a lot of hiking. I leave it at that. But it's fun. It's beautiful out there, and hopefully we'll get out there again soon. Little grandbaby out there, so hopefully I'll get to see her again.
Awesome. Great. Very outdoorsy and so great. Dia, so I want to talk a little bit about Gilman and what Gilman means to you and kind of how you found your way here after teaching at McDonough and some of the other schools that you started out teaching, and then you've been at Gilman for a while and this is your home. So how did you get here first?
So I was actually I was teaching at St. James out in Moncton, and a Gilman teacher came out to observe me for a class or something. I'm not sure why. And I was teaching pre-first, which was a new concept. And she said, I think you'd really like it. We're opening we need a pre-first teacher at Gilman, and they're hiring right now. You should probably think about applying. I was like, well, I'm happy where I am, and it's probably late in the process. She said, yeah, it's pretty late in the process. I said, all right. So I thought about it, went home, really did think through it, and said, well, all right, what do I have to lose? One of those. So I think I was one of the last ones in on that one, and went through the process, loved the school, loved the idea of the bigger school, because St. James was pretty small and it was co-ed. And I realized how much I liked the personality of the boys. So when you came in and you taught a lesson with the boys, you really had a good, of course I taught about dinosaurs. And so I had them like that, but they were really into it and they were excited. And I realized how much I liked that. And most of my classes were boys anyway, with the teaching pre-first. So anyway, I ended up, had a good conversation with Mr. Finney. At one point it was a little embarrassing because I did play lacrosse against his daughters in field hockey. So I knew that. But he called me out on playing against his daughter Beth, basically. Not so much called me out, but he's like, yeah, I remember you playing. And you sit like this, like, wait, what? Because I didn't think about it. He's like, I remember that because you had a really hard shot to the top right-hand corner. And in my head at first, I was like, oh no, not stick side, like high, like, great. I'm shooting high to the top right corner constantly. And then I went, wait, no, I'm good. But for this man to know who I was, remember this, and remembered me playing sports, I thought, how do you even remember this? You see so many people. But he was such a good hearted person and really got to know people that it was an easy conversation. And so then I think next thing I know, they just, from what I remember, it's a long time ago, was, do you want to work here? I thought, sure, why not? And I've been here for 31 years. So it worked out well. But Mr. Finney was just always wonderful, really, truly knew you as a person. And then I was trying to think, I guess it's been 5 headmasters since I've been here, and each one's unique, and each one has brought great qualities to Gilman and brought new ideas, new ways of thinking, and to be able to watch all of that over the years has been really cool. Sometimes what's new is, or what's old is new again, or however that goes. Seems like we go back and forth between ideas and philosophies, but all of it's been towards building up a better foundation and a really good group of young men to put into the future. It's been fun to see them.
Yeah. And the community part too. And just from what I've heard about Mr. Finney is building that community through those relationships. And it's just amazing that, everyone who talks about him talks about how he knew all the boys' names and what sports they were involved in or what extracurriculars they were doing after school.
Yeah.
Keeping that straight. It sounds, it's amazing, but it sounds, basic to some degree, but then it's like that makes a huge impact on your relationships with people. If you say, hey, you had a great game on Friday, it's like, now I love Mr. Finney. Is he watched my game?
It's like, he saw me.
Yeah.
And it was fun. He would come, I coached his granddaughters, his granddaughters. And so he was always at the games at that point too. So that was fun. My daughter played with his granddaughters. So you'd see him out there. And he was always he couldn't be a more polite fan, as he's watching, and intense, competitive, even when they're 8 years old. Come on, girls.
Love it.
So it was fun. But yeah, so that's how I just sort of ended up at Gilman and it's interesting on a different note, running into some of the boys that I did teach when they were younger. And it takes me a minute because now they're in their 30s and looking at me with a little kid on their hip or something. And I have to go, wait, tell me again. And usually I can get it, but it's taking me a minute to realize who it is. But during COVID, I was out running a fair amount and ran into more people who would stop and say, Mrs. Matthews? I'd be, hi.
Oh my God.
Tell me again who it is. It's Jeremy Pollack. Hi, Jeremy. It's Jack Devlin. Oh, hi, Jack. Hi, it's Sam Frank. I'm like, hi, guys. But it was really fun. The fact that they would stop and say hello really meant a lot. And
For sure.
I think a lot of teachers have seen that over the years. And the boys love to tell you who they are and what they're doing. So that's been a really nice perk of being here for so long.
Yeah, just watching boys grow up and become, different men in the future.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really cool.
It is.
So at Gilman, pre-first was kind of a new idea when you first came in here. Maybe we can talk about like what that idea entailed and how that's played out. The pre-first, because I didn't really know much about pre-first when I first came here.
It was interesting because at McDonough, when I was first started teaching there my first year, I was in their pre-first. So for some reason that seemed to be a grade level I gravitated to, and I'd never heard of it either. But it seemed to be a way to help even the playing field in some ways, so that everybody would not be the youngest in the class or try not to have the oldest in the class, sort of middle. You're always going to have extremes, but it tried to even it out a little bit more. And especially with boys, what we noticed is they're interested in so many other things. It's not that, they don't want to read or they don't want to or they can't write. It's more that there's other things going on that are far more interesting, and they're going to get it. But you got to figure out how to keep them focused and interested into doing some of the more academic pieces. But I just found that a lot of academics is sort of more suited for girls, and in terms of sitting still for a little bit longer or the neatness with the writing, and some of the boys didn't have that. And I always thought it's not fair to punish them for, say, oh, well, you can't do that you must not be very smart, you must not be very whatever, because you physically aren't ready to settle down and do that. And so pre-first would sort of help with that that idea of give them time to grow and give them different ways to explore it, not sit down here with a book, because that's not the best way for a boy to learn all the time. Some boys, yes, some girls, yes, some boys, no. So you try and find different ways, and that's kind of how we evolve. So our thought process was, whatever you can do with the letter A, we're going to do it. So if it's apple printing to apple painting to applesauce to playing something that begins with an A, anything we can think of so that you it's ingrained in you to learn that and figure out more about it. That's how we sort of built our program. So you have to touch it, do it, whatever you can to make it stick, but try and make it something that's interesting. And we were allowed to go sideways, horizontal, and grow horizontally versus let's go faster and further.
Mm-hmm.
We could just sort of really stick to a subject and really figure out what it is and learn it. And that seemed to work really well with the kids that we had. We weren't in a rush.
What's like the development you see in that pre-first year? Because it sounds like a lot of it is targeted towards creativity and not just sitting at a desk and, writing or learning to read in a seated, position. It's more get up, move around the room, point to certain things. Mm-hmm. Even now, I like standing on this dot, do this, read this word, right? Like different things that you can do to get them moving around and active.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people learn better by doing something, and then the boys are no different that way. A lot of it, the other piece is social. So trying to get them to play, to make sure that you take a turn, I take a turn, what's fair? No, that is cheating, don't do that. Or what's another way we can solve this problem? And that's a lot more of what goes on to it. But the development that they have from the beginning of the year to the end of the year is just enormous. And it's so fun to watch. And you don't even really realize all the pieces are being put together until they come back and go to first grade and you see this mature little guy walk in that last year might have been swinging his backpack around his head the entire way down the hall. He actually has it on now and can do it. And they know they can do it. So the whole year is spent in pre-first is really, and I mean, a lot of times in kindergarten as well, it's just getting them to see what they can do and be proud of it and do the best that they can. But it takes time, and sometimes it takes a little more time for some guys than others. All three of my kids were pre-first kids, and I think it was the best thing for them. When they got to college, they were a little bit older in the sense, but they felt good about everything. They said, yes, I can take this class. I can fly out to Chicago to do whatever. I can, drive up to Rutgers. I'm fine. It's an enormous school, Mom. I'll be fine. I'm like, and I keep thinking a year younger, they would have been the youngest ones. And I'm not sure it would have worked out the way it did.
Yeah. Confidence wise, it's huge. Mm-hmm. And just the autonomy to, feel good about whatever it is you're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it does. It's not right now that it matters. It's later. Mm-hmm. And that's, they were the older ones, sort of, not older, but to be driving, they were more responsible. I felt okay about it. Whereas if you're the youngest one in, starting to drive and everybody else is driving and you're trying to keep up with everybody else, it's harder. And they were sort of more sort of the middle of the pack. And I know, like I said, you're always going to have younger and older, but it's more the confidence piece and where that falls in your maturity. So.
Yeah, I think the social part of all of that is important too. Is like, everyone, it's almost, this is a stereotype obviously, but like the younger guys that I know in my classes in high school and middle school were always kind of trying to keep up with the crowd and, fit in, and that's to some degree that's not natural, and they're forcing it a little bit. So what you're saying does make sense.
Yeah, it's hard, and a lot of times as a parent, you're always, come on, let's walk, come on, let's read, come on, let's do this, and actually we're trying to say, hey, let them have some time, let them explore it, let them figure it out a little bit instead of being in such a rush. And honestly, selfishly, I was very happy to have my kids around a little bit longer. One more year before they go to college. Yeah. I was all right with that. Yeah. That was fun. And now they're all back.
And I think during the COVID time right now, that social part of growing up in lower school and pre-first, like how they learn from each other is lost a little bit. So is there anything that you're maybe doing in your classes now that get the kids to interact a little bit more, even at a distance, or what ways are you going about that whole situation?
That's been really hard. I think that's what I miss the most, because so much, as we said before, is about games and playing. So you practice a skill by playing a game. Well, it's a little hard to play slapjack by yourself. Mm-hmm. I mean, it works, but it's not quite as much fun as, another person over there. So you have to come up with different ways that they can talk to each other, and they probably have to talk to each other and communicate more than they ever have.
Mm-hmm.
Because before they usually would just, bump into somebody and then go from there and start a conversation. Now you actually have to look at somebody across the room and try and get their attention without screaming, and make conversation with somebody that you probably wouldn't hang out with.
Mm-hmm.
And having the smaller classes, they really do spend a lot more time with their pod of people. So they have a group of 3. So they really do get to know that group of 3 at the table.
That's
before
good.
You do a table turn, and now you're with someone else.
Yep.
It's been hard. They can't play the way that they used to, and they really can't interact within the classroom as freely as they did before. They still are. They still have time.
Right.
But it's just a little more controlled. So I miss them building up, huge stacks of blocks and knocking them over and going, he did it.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah. Well,
can't share those blocks.
Well, we'll be back,
Yeah.
hopefully soon. But
hopefully.
do you have to do much with discipline with the younger kids? Like, do you, in terms of punishment or reinforcement or negative reinforcement, or how do you, like, if a kid's messing around the entire time you're trying to explain something, what are
this
some
works really well.
eye contact?
Eye contact. No, there's not. They want to please. They really do.
Mm-hmm.
And you can forgive them for half the stuff they do because they can't help it. They just don't want to sit any longer.
Mm-hmm.
And they're really good about telling you when you've been boring. They're like, see ya.
Yeah.
I'm out.
And that's honestly good to know as a teacher. Like, tell me when I'm rambling.
Did I bore you?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
So, but it's also keeping them busy and being ready to, you avoid a lot of discipline issues if you have stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that you can't have them standing there for 5 minutes or else they're just going to find something else to do. So you're quick to transition to something new. They love any kind of game, any kind of, 20 questions, or, if you can hear me, clap twice. What? And all of a sudden they're paying attention. So we really don't have that many discipline issues. And a lot of times if they really want to do something that's not the right thing, they'll own it too. And they're like, I know, I didn't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, all right, I respect that.
Yeah. At least they're honest.
So it's really, this year especially, we really don't have that many discipline issues. Usually they're kind of funny and you have to keep a straight face. Don't do that.
Yeah.
As you're laughing going, oh boy, don't paint yourself green.
Yeah.
That's just a bad idea. The paint is for painting, not
Oh
your
my
skin,
God.
not your neighbor. But those things you can handle.
So you're with little kids,
Mm-hmm.
and it changes every year, pre-first, second grade, anything but fifth grade so
Right.
far. You're with kids from 8 to 3 o'clock every day. How do you keep that energy that's required to occupy the classroom for that long with all those kids and their energy, enthusiasm? How do you keep the fire going?
You have to kind of act their age. So we have a fair amount of dancing that goes on. We have a fair amount of games. I've been known to be out there and play tag with them at times, or whatever it is, recess. But you have to realize sort of where they're coming from, and be willing to make a fool of yourself and engage with them. If you find yourself thinking you're the adult in the room, you're in the wrong place at that point.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to realize that they're kids and you're working with them. So that's how I keep sort of my energy. A lot of coffee. I do run, as you know, a fair amount, and exercise because they're tiring. It's exhausting being with them. But they're fun. And if you just keep it in the right frame of mind, because you could get irritated pretty quickly if you wanted to, but you can look at it in a different way and go, that's kind of funny. And you just go from there. But the fact that you see them learning so much and growing it gives you the energy. So that's how I sort of keep my sanity during the day.
Yeah, their enthusiasm. And
it's so contagious.
Yeah, it is.
It really is. Come on down, you'll see.
Just the little things they get excited about, and then you're like, hey, that is pretty cool. I'm excited.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
So that's how we stay motivated.
Yeah. A lot of coffee too.
A lot of coffee.
I'm
We just got a machine in the room, so we have it right there.
Yep.
Keep us going.
We did too in Nostrand, Ned in my office, Ned Emla's office.
Yeah, this seems to be the year.
Yeah, it's the best thing we ever did was get a Keurig in there.
Yep. That's what we did.
So when you run, do you usually go after school, before school, middle of the day? When do you get out?
Usually after school. usually
school.
after. I'm not so good first thing in the morning, but
Yeah.
I'm just not awake.
Tough to get the body moving at 6 a.m.
Yeah, and I might get hurt knowing me.
Yeah.
So I'm better off when it's light out and go for a run for a while and then come back. Mostly just to clear my head before I have to do whatever else is going on that day.
Mm-hmm.
So, before you go home and think about what you're going to do next for school or for at home, at least you have a break. So for me, it really does give me a chance to wind down.
How much do you prep for your classes the next day?
It's interesting. It depends what you're teaching. It's so much hands-on prep. So you're cutting things out. You're definitely working probably the same amount of hours, but in such a weird way, because it's cutting things apart. It's getting stuff ready, because I found when you're teaching the older kids, you have a longer period of time that you think that they can be attending what you're doing. But with the little ones, you better have something every 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it has to be ready or else they're going to eat you alive.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have all of that out and ready. So it's a fair amount of prep, but not reading papers and things like that. And it's also, and some nights, having to call parents or talk to parents or email, things like that too. And I spent a lot of my time just trying to figure out what I can do that's appropriate for their age level, what will help them to be a better reader, what will help make a lesson a little bit more exciting. So it's extra planning that way. I feel like I should be better at it by now, but I'm always looking for something new.
Well, that's really hard. And that's something that I'm struggling with too, is, as you said, you have some readers that are reading, chapter books, and then, some readers who are trying to put together a sentence or read a sentence.
Yeah.
That's a huge gap to bridge as a lower school teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So is a lot of that work individual based, or like how do you plan like a reading class with such a wide gap like that?
A lot of times too, there's a sort of a common activity that you can do that everybody needs, just like sports. Goes back to sports for me. You still have to start jogging before you run.
Mm-hmm.
And before you do, you've got to do your stick skills before your line drills, before you start working on your offense, and who's going to run what. So it's this, I sort of divide it up that way too. Everybody has to do the warm-up drills, and then you bring people, sort of the group that is working on some specific skill, you bring them over and you work with them. And it doesn't, for little kids, it doesn't have to be that long, 10 minutes. And they're like, all right, I've got it. And the repetition they have, and then you can bring another group in. So you really do sort of have them busy, pull some friends in, send some away doing something else. Of course, they immediately go, oh, that looks really fun. I want to do that. So then you get a whole nother group over.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another fun part about teaching them. Well, if he can do it, I can do it. Mm-hmm. You're right, you can. So it builds on each other, or on the skills that we're doing.
Great. Excellent.
But it's not easy.
Yeah, it sounds very tough. It sounds like you have to pull out all your tricks, and you have so many different skills that you've developed in terms of keeping their attention, changing the activity, entertaining.
We do it all.
Play some music, dance a little bit.
Yep.
Do some reading now.
Yeah. Take a little nap. We're good.
But I think that's true for all ages. Like if we're doing something for 80 minutes, like you're gonna get bored. We need to change it up every 10 to 15 minutes in the upper school. So
yeah, I don't know how you all do it.
Yeah.
So the flip side is I see you all lecturing and then having these group discussions and keeping them all engaged, and I always just wonder how you all do it, because that seems really tough to me.
I think it's the same thing. At least in my class, I try to do the same thing that you're talking about. Like I start off with a competition. I start off with some music, and then after 10 to 15 minutes, switch it up. Like, especially in COVID times when I have kids on the
Zoom.
I have half my class on the Zoom, half the class in person. So I have them all go on Zoom. Yeah. Just to get everyone in one spot. But then it's weird because I'm teaching, virtually when I have kids in the class.
We are very, very lucky that all of our boys are in. So we don't have any at home right now.
Yeah.
And I think that I've heard teachers and talked to them, and they said it's really difficult, really hard. And
yeah, especially for the younger boys.
Yeah.
Like my aunt is a phys ed teacher for younger boys. I don't know how she teaches virtually right now.
I don't know. You make a lot of videos. That's all I did all spring was make videos, I think. Every time I turned around, I'm like, all right, now we're going to do paper plate push-ups. Ready? And you would try something and they would, try it out or send it to you. And it just was hard, though, to sustain that attention. It's just not the same.
Yeah.
And you do need parent support. And we had a lot of it, thank goodness.
Right.
Because you couldn't do it without them, that's for sure.
Yeah.
We all are working together.
Yep. Trying to get through this. So last question that I want to talk to you about is
Sure.
that I read up on
Uh-oh.
your just your Gilman bio,
Mm-hmm.
and one of your favorite teachers, Peter Desmit.
Yep, Peter Desmit, as in Doug Desmit's dad.
Oh yeah. Friend school teacher.
He was my basketball coach and the athletic director, and he actually was my husband's soccer coach. So he knew the two of us pretty well. Couldn't get away with much when we were at school, but he expected so much from us. And in terms of a supporter, he could not have been more supportive. He was coaching a girls' basketball team, and we were all pretty good athletes, but not basketball players. And he turned us into a pretty good basketball team. You do the Friday night lights, Friday night, whatever, FNB, Friday night basketball. And we would get just as many fans as the boys. Like, it was just fun, and the atmosphere and the camaraderie that he built for us. And he never let us get away with anything. And just, he expected that we could do it. He didn't care that we were girls.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, you're going to do this. And he's been around. Whenever I see him, he's sees my kids. He's watched them play. Coached my daughter. I think that was his last year. Maybe she was first or second grade. He was still there. And he just was a big part of our life and influenced us in such positive ways. He was such a positive person, still is. I don't know. He was one of the nicest guys and just influenced me to believe in myself, and I could do whatever I wanted. And he was right there. And if I fell down, he picked me up. Mm-hmm. I fell a lot. He picked me up. But
love it.
Yeah. So I think he was definitely one of my biggest influences.
Great. Dia, it's been a pleasure to talk to you on the Path to Follow podcast. We got, I think, a lot covered today.
Yeah, and, more than I thought. Thanks.
Yeah, we covered it all, but hopefully we can get you back on the podcast. It was just interesting to hear from a lower school standpoint what's going on down there, because I look out the window, I see the kids running around, and I'm wondering what this is like for them.
Yeah. Well, I know we'd love to have you, like I said, down there. Not
Absolutely.
Sure what the protocol is, whether you can come see us or not, but you can watch us run around on the fields.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Out there. But we would love to have you down. We'll Zoom you in.
We'll do some.
We're getting better at that.
Yeah. If I can come in, we'll do some shaving cream drawings.
Perfect.
That's my favorite.
I've got a tray and shaving cream for you. It's all set up.
Thank you, Dia.
Thank you.
Great time.
Good.